Welcome, everybody. It is me. It is the Cyber Warrior, and you are once again here on CyberWarriorStudios presents Security Happy Hour, and we got an amazing show planned for you today. I just hope you all stick around for the entire hour, sometimes a little bit more, and stick with us. So I will be seeing you here in just a second as we bring in our awesome guest and my amazing co-host. And we're back. So, yes, it is me. It is the Cyber Warrior. And with me, as always, I have my friend, my partner in crime, the man who left me last week hanging, the Cyber Papa, Eric Bellardo. Eric, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing awesome. I'm glad to be here. Another Friday here. I left you hanging because we were all at Cyber JitsuCon in the wonderful Maritime Institute in Baltimore, Maryland last week. So it was wonderful.
That's awesome, though. That's actually a good place to be. I wish I could have gone. Unfortunately, I don't have the love that you do from everybody else in the world. So you get to go to all these amazing places, and I do not. But that's okay. I still love everybody. But as we continue on, I have a good friend of mine, someone that I've been talking to for quite some time, got me involved in a few different organizations as far as just keeping up on the industry. Alex, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. It's a Friday in the middle of June, so pretty excited for the end of today and to continue drinking into the weekend.
Oh,
There you
yes.
go. Yeah, definitely. I found so look, my beer distributor hooks me up. She puts together these IPAs, and they're always in like a little 4-pack, and they're random. So I had two others earlier, and they're all different. Right now, it's Weird and Gilly. All right, that's
Ooh,
today's IPA, or at least the current one, and then I might have a different one later. As we all know, I
I'm
go through
going with
quite a few
something.
different.
I'm going with just the one you like. Big Little
There
Things.
you go, little things. Yeah, that's what Eric likes. Eric, I
Yeah,
like the hat, by the way. Rocking the Raíces Cyber hat. I like it. I'm gonna have to get me one eventually. But Alex, we are here, and we are here to talk about two different topics. Kind of go hand in hand, but we want to start with the overarching topic first, which is Dfir. So, digital forensics and incident response. Now, that is a very important topic, and I would like to know how you got into digital forensics and why you made that your topic of choice today.
sure. So, I mean, I went for the most broad topic I could think of, so we could talk for more than an hour, even though we have that hour time frame. But what I really want to do is give a little awareness today. So, from my background over the last 7 or 8 years, I've been doing incident response on a post incident basis. So, most of the time, cases that are coming in that I'm seeing, that I'm observing every single day, including today, we are dealing with companies that are completely down and unoperational. They are dealing with ransomware attacks, business email compromise, network intrusions, anything you don't want to be dealing with on a Friday afternoon. Well, we're dealing with it right now. And I want to talk a little bit about it. I really want to get the audience involved here to ask a bunch of questions, maybe related to the ransomware situations that are going on. There's been a lot of topics. There's even been a lull, like a downgrading cases over the last like maybe 6 months. So even talking about that, maybe asking a bunch of questions there. But the one thing that excited me was that every single day is different. Day number one coming in, I negotiated with one threat actor, thought it would be pretty simple. In the end, took me almost 3 weeks to negotiate with this threat actor to get them down 75, 80%. And I got to learn from some of the best incident responders in the industry, though, in my opinion. Sorry, Derek. Um, and just being able to observe how they negotiate, how they communicate to these threat actors, all the way to dealing with some of the best security operation analysts, how they do reverse engineering of malware, to see if we can find new tactics and techniques being used by these threat actors, so that even before the threat actor hits the next time, we're 1 or 2 steps ahead. So those are just a bunch of reasons why I enjoy it. I love breaking things. So that was another one. And then I like putting it back together. So it works. Yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of fun. Everyone here is in cyber. You see, I mean, just Derek, you and I are in completely different fields, and yet we're in the same field. So just being
Yep.
that, like medical doctors can talk medical to each other, but no one else understands it. It's the same thing with cyber. Everyone in cybersecurity can talk to each other, and then once you talk to your wife, she's like, "Yeah, I'll click on that link." JetBlue is for sure giving us free tickets.
I love that you bring that up though, because I've used the doctor analogy um, in several instances, and a lot of it comes down to education and kind of pay and things along that scale, and the need to continuously learn, because whether you're in digital forensics or offensive security or some other red team or blue team field, um, the field is constantly changing. There's new threat actors, there's new exploits, there's new mitigations, there's new policies and procedures and everything else.
Sure.
So you are constantly moving and learning. And kind of like doctors, there's always a new technology or a new diagnosis or a new disease or whatever. So they're constantly learning and growing. So I've always equated the two, maybe not in schooling, because unlike doctors who have to go through 50 years of school before they're, actually a doctor and not a resident or anything like that, they finally hit the peak. In cybersecurity, you can get that with or without school. And I stand by that. With or without school,
Oh,
you
agree.
can hit your peak as long as you continuously learn. So I do find that I do relate a lot of what IT and cybersecurity does to how doctors are. And when it comes to digital forensics, man, there ain't no better field to learn in, because the ATPs, they're always out there.
It's interesting. Working in security operations and incident response, I thought they would actually change the name to Sawyer, SOIR, Security Operations Incident Response, because those really go more together and they're in the same tier than digital forensics and incident response. Because digital forensics, you're talking about something happened and now you are looking at a logs, you're looking at the firewall, you're looking at the remote. Why do we have remote desktop open out to the internet over 3389? Sorry, I just saw that about a week and a half ago. And that IT guy who has 30 years of experience, you know, explained to me why. He said it was the easiest thing to do. He made it simple for the client. I'm like, do you have like a legal form that says that I am not liable if someone attacks me or attacks this client over 3389? He's like, no, no one's gonna hit us. We're a small business, and yet they were hit with ransomware. And so it, it's just knowledge. Within the medical field, you look now. Everyone wants to know more about the science. Everyone wants to know more about you know medicine. And it's the same thing within cybersecurity, unfortunately, because there's so much of an uptick in incidents, and we've been seeing it since pre-COVID times, where they're utilizing whatever's going on in the world to take advantage of people who aren't aware of the bad people on the internet, especially those who are emailing me, hey, you got a Geek Squad invoice. Call this number if you want more information. Oh, I'm calling that number. And like, there's no way I'm not calling that number. I want to know what they want from me, and then I get to slowly gear them into telling me more information about them, and social engineer them back. But my parents, they would call the number and let the person use TeamViewer to get into their computer, probably. So just
See, I
giving that
suck at that.
awareness.
I suck at that because I always laugh or call them a bitch while I'm on the phone, and then I get called a bitch and hung up on. Like it just doesn't work for me. I've been called an asshole and a bitch more times than I can count from scammers. Because I'm usually laughing by the time they pick up the phone after the robo dial. So, when you're looking at it and looking at the training behind it, and this leads into a different kind of conversation than we were heading down, but still kind of the incident response type of things, because you have these emails now. You have, I've always told people, what is the best way to get someone to do something is to elicit, and we see this now in society, you elicit an emotional response. The most powerful emotional response you can elicit is fear. You make someone fear something, they're immediately going to act. those that think logically don't act. Those that think on emotion will act immediately. And so it's conversations I've had with my wife and my parents and, my kids and everybody else. Quit thinking with emotion. If you think with emotion, you're going to get that email that says, hey, we're going to take 10 grand from your account because you bought this on Amazon. Really? I don't recall making any purchases on Amazon. Let's find out. Let's see what's going on here. And so businesses keep falling victim to this now, because now it's coming to a business email. Now it's, hey, can you check this invoice? It says that you pay, or we're holding, $1,000 for you, or whatever the case may be, or view this spreadsheet. And we even now have a new Microsoft malware that came out that I think it was recently patched, MSDT.
Yep.
I can't remember all the details behind it, but I want to say it was another macro
Felonia.
virus. Yeah.
Felonia, Felonia, something like that. Felina.
Yeah. So it's crazy that people are still falling victim, but then you have business email compromise. What if it comes from a client, a legit client email, and you have those issues? And Rebecca Ford, you are correct. The senior population is so vulnerable, and it is not for ignorance. It is just no one's ever told them otherwise.
Lack of awareness. I was
Yes.
just a very unfortunate situation. We were dealing with a huge estate. The client was their accounts receivable or accounts payable, and they didn't have an environment. The environment was not attacked. It was this lady. She was targeted. She's like a 75-year-old ready to retire. She just helping out this estate for the next couple of months. And someone contacted her through email, a Yahoo account. They didn't even have like an internal email account. Like they didn't have O365. They don't have Gmail. She had a Yahoo account, and they contacted her Yahoo account and said, "Here are the ACH wiring instructions. Send the money here." And you know what she did? She sent the money to this new place, and 85,000, 90, whatever the number was later, she's like, "Where did? It's a lot of money. It's gone. No more money." And the bank targeted, like triggered on it, but did not stop the funds from wiring over. So great work by the bank for alerting on it, saying, "Hey, this looks very weird," but they never actually stopped it. Now, working from the bank side for a couple of years, these incidents occur on the hour.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Where $85,000 move from one account in some random bank to our accounts or out of our accounts. And to find that money or to trace that money is very complicated. At Barclays, when I was working there, they had an incredible like fraud detection team. And that team was targeting the dark web. They were monitoring the dark web for things, and they're also monitoring other email threads, insider threat email threads, stuff like that, to see if anything could get picked up on finding if there's any insiders that would send an email to an old lady. And because we have their information internally, and actually start trying to wire money to themselves. So they were one of the best fraud detection departments I've ever seen, even better than when I was at Bank of New York Mellon. Like they were really on point at Barclays.
And see, the crazy part about that is I went to pay a loan with a company, and normally I pay them out of one account because I have a few different accounts. So I went to pay them. I normally pay them out of one. Didn't do that. Paid them out of my primary, and my bank stopped it. And they're like, we're not going to authorize this on your card. Now, ACH worked. So when I put in the checking and routing account information, that worked. But doing it from my bank card, they're like, no, that's not going to fly. So it really depends on how these things are done. And I think that's why you see more give us your checking and routing information versus allowing pay by card, because they don't necessarily catch the fraud right away with ACH and cash transfers. It's more card activity. Your card departments are top notch. I'm sorry. Everything I've ever tried to do, if it went outside a realm of, X amount of dollars, unless you told them in advance, immediately it was declined. And it was like, hey, you just tried to do this. Are you sure that's really what you want to do? Unfortunately, yeah, I do have to spend that much money, even though I don't want to.
Well, there's a lot of organizations that are trying to target that vulnerable population, saying, here's some education. I know NSA, the Cryptological Museum in Maryland, has this course for people getting up in age there to explain these types of attacks and compromises and how they do this. Unfortunately, there's just not a lot of education for senior population that's there, to explain to them that, look, everything you see online is not real, that these emails are not real. And just like you had scammers, doing the face to face scamming, now they're doing it behind the computer. So it's still an uphill battle for us to communicate those security things, and banks are trying to do that and
100%.
educate their folks, and trying to use electronic and technical issues to try to protect people. But what's the weakest chain in cybersecurity?
The people.
Human element.
Yeah, the meat bags.
So unfortunately, when I tell people security recommendations, security awareness is not one of them. Because my definition of a recommendation, or just a general understanding of how to prevent or detect one of these types of attacks, security awareness is great, but it's not going to be the way to stop it. Because unfortunately, as Derek brought up, as one of the number one attacks now are these vulnerabilities. In the, let's say, 1,000 ransomware incidents I've seen over the last 5 or 6 or 7 years, let's say 75% of them have been an exploit on a vulnerability. And in those 25%, which were emails, where someone clicked on a link and it dropped a malicious, let's say a Trojan, or it dropped a backdoor, in those types of cases, there was also another vulnerability that was exploited that got the threat actor to stay in, building a remote access Trojan on the system, on your, let's say, the high ground of your firewall, of your domain controller. That's where these threat actors are then sitting and then waiting until they need to deploy that ransomware. So security awareness, great. I think this is just my personal belief, nothing to do with the company I work with, nothing to do with Cyber Warrior Studios, but I think the number one way to prevent and detect is EDR. And I'm going to get a lot of
Oh
flack
yeah.
for this.
Oh
I
no,
may get flack.
you might. So I stand by it behind two things. EDR properly implemented and monitored, meaning you have to hire the staff behind it that can do the job right
Or just get an
and
MDR.
implement it correctly.
Right.
And then your SIMs. So if you have something, and again, your SIM still has to have, and this is where the human element comes in. If you have an alert, your SIMs can't have log fatigue or alert fatigue. It has to be tuned and it has to be figured out properly. So from a blue team perspective, it is multifaceted. It is not just one or the other. It is that layered defense. That is the only way you're really going to achieve it. EDR is that lowest layer to, the human element of I clicked on a link or I opened an email or I opened a document. That's where your EDR is going to come in, because you can't prevent everybody from doing something, right? We can train all we want. You can do that to your blue in the face. But even those in cybersecurity have fallen victim to clicking on a link or opening a document. So you can do that. And thank you, Rebecca Ford, for saying that. You need proper care and feeding of your SIM. And that is what I do. I help companies find those vulnerabilities, those alerts, and those logs that they should be getting, and how they can correlate it, and how they can make it events
Right.
or make it actionable data and something actionable. And that's what it takes. Unfortunately, and this is the very unfortunate part, as much as I love all these SIM vendors out there, they sell to the CISO and the security director. At that point, once it is in place, 9 times out of 10, they don't have the staff to handle it. They
Oh,
do not have the staff to actually sit there and analyze the logs and the alerts and the events and everything else, or tune out, hey, we have a routing loop. Can you please go fix this shit because you decided to pull your router logs into my SIM? I think router logs should be there, but I also think as a networking person, you should not be introducing routing loops. There's a fucking problem there. So if I'm seeing this, it's all about tuning those alerts and getting those things fixed. And when you don't have the teams that can do it and the personnel on hand, you have fatigue and you have burnout, and you have people that are going to look at shit and just be like, oh, I've seen this 1,000 times. It's okay. And it's that one time. That's all it takes for somebody to sit in there and be like, ha, ha, bitch, I'm in. All it takes.
it brings me back to an incredible story. But before I give the story on alert fatigue, I want to talk about one other thing. So EDR, whatever EDR, and I can give my own. If anyone wants, suggestions on EDR, I will happily give them, but I will not
CrowdStrike.
provide on here.
Mm.
So now that you gave an opinion, I will give mine. So I did a test. I did a test about 6 months ago, and I threw CrowdStrike against SentinelOne. And I put SentinelOne with the Arete Arsenal, which is our threat intel management platform that is implemented within SentinelOne. And when I did that test, let me tell you, 9 times out of 10, SentinelOne triggered. Actually, I take it back. 10 times out of 10, SentinelOne triggered on something, either alerted on it through our threat intel management platform or through their threats platform. And CrowdStrike was 9 times out of 10. I think they're very similar. I know George. I know Tomer. I know the CEOs of both. I think they're both incredible. It depends on your environment. It depends on who you are. But those are the two tools that I would use. I do not look at the other competition in the industry as competition because they're just a few wavelengths behind. So Cybereason is really good at alerting. They're really good at finding the threat, but they're alerting on it. Really important with regards to Emotet and Dridex and the banking Trojan. They trigger on weird activity, but there's way too many false positives with that as well. And they're not blocking it and quarantining it, they're just alerting on it. With regards to SentinelOne, it sees Emotet, it sees Dridex, it sees any of these. Let's go ICE ID. Boom. Threats blocked right away. Killed in quarantine. So really important to look at each one of them and look at who you are and understanding what you need for your environment.
Well, you said it earlier. The challenge is that, you know, 50% of those companies out there are small to mid-sized businesses. Okay. And they don't have the manpower, they don't have the staff, they don't have the budget to get the big shiny lights. So they want or have, maybe a small, implementation, if at all, of something. So, what are the recommendations for, say a small to mid-sized business or a very small business, and say, how do I protect myself out there from, say, the most common security stuff? How do we do our basic hygiene, and how do we detect things?
That's the $1 million question right there. And you hit it right on the nail. When you get into EDR, EDRs are cheap. SentinelOne through the Arete platform is like $10 an endpoint up to 200 endpoints, and then it goes down from there. maybe more or less per month.
That ain't bad at all.
So it's not that bad. Let's say $10 an endpoint or $15 a month per endpoint. It's not bad for a small business. So I look at that as one of the most important things is getting an EDR managed by someone, as you were saying, Derek. Really important that not you. There should be eyes on glass, 24/7, 365 in that MDR or EDR. The second thing is MFA,
Yep.
multi-factor, and you know Jen Easterly out of CISA is a close friend. She was working at Morgan Stanley. I did some work when she was over there. She has been pushing this for months, almost a year now, just pushing MFA. If you can get MFA EDR in place and get like a small patch management policy going, yeah, let's have a silent disco when we have all three of those going.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, hey, yeah.
So Pete Simon brings up DNS filtering. Why is that not part of the equation? Because now you're spending a lot more money. I think when you bring into DNS filtering, and I know where Pete is going to. He wants me to go towards another EDR called Heimdall. Have you heard of it?
I have not heard that one. I've not heard of them. And
they're a Dutch.
I like the name.
EDR,
I like the name personally, but I have not heard of them.
So Heimdall is a Dutch EDR, and Pete can tell me if I'm wrong here. And what they're doing is they're also doing DNS filtering and network monitoring through their EDR. So when I look at that, I think it's way too much from the EDR side and way too much for a small business. However, some people might like that. So it's another shiny. Oh, Danish. Sorry, close. Danish, Dutch, starts with a D. One's one way, one's another way.
But
it's true.
It is, and when I think about it, so here's the problem: is you start putting too many of your eggs into one basket. And I will be the first one to tell you, from a residential standpoint, I stand by Bitdefender. I have always stood by Bitdefender since I started using them and the things they can do.
But you consider that an EDR?
I have not touched them in the enterprise. Oh. But from a residential standpoint, they do what you need them to do. Because they will enable like file system monitoring. You can do a bunch of things with them. And the pricing scale is amazing for residential. From a business perspective, I have not touched that platform to vouch for them and say, oh, that'd be great on a small business, because I don't know. I know what CrowdStrike has stopped me from fucking doing. I know what CrowdStrike has prevented me from. I know Cylance, when implemented properly, can completely kill your ability to run any fucking script on a system. So good luck exploiting it, because you can't run fucking PowerShell. I know the different EDRs for corporations and how they can help and log for Dfir and your incident response, your digital forensics. I know how all these things react. Unfortunately, the one company that I stand behind on residential, nobody I've touched has used it for enterprise, so I don't know how it would work.
So I'll give you numbers. I'll give you some high level numbers, okay? So in let's say 1,000 incidents I've dealt with, I've probably dealt with maybe closer to the 2,000 incidents at this point in my career. But let's talk 1,000 incidents. Over 1,000 incidents that I've dealt with, ransomware only. 700. Let's say 75% of those incidents. 90% of those incidents. Let's go 90% of the incidents that I've dealt with in ransomware attacks have been regular antivirus. Of those 90%, let's say 25%, 30% has been Bitdefender, others WebRoot, SEP, Windows Defender, nothing. Mm-hmm. Nothing in place. In the cases where Bitdefender was there, maybe 50% of the time, it triggered on something, but it wasn't the right thing. So it quarantined something, the back door, but the threat actor was already in through another access point.
That's interesting.
the lateral move, it's like, oh, something's weird here, so it triggers off of like File Explorer and tries to block that, but it misses the actual malicious attack. So it's an interesting thing you bring up about Bitdefender, because with Bitdefender and WebRoot, that's what I was seeing. So my close friend who owns his own managed service in New Jersey, he was talking to me about how Bitdefender is the end all be all, the best product out there. And I said to
I
him,
stand
hold
by
on,
that for residential. I won't touch it for
for
business.
residential. So for residential, but for businesses, I was like, I don't know. Maybe you should go. And if you're going to go Bitdefender for residential, I would rather go with Defender, because Defender is the same exact intel that Bitdefender's getting. Sorry, people are going to go crazy now.
Bitdefender gives me VPN and so much more access. I prefer what I get from them. And again, it's not to argue. It's that Windows Defender, I stood behind them 100% for years when they were free. And I was like, look, Windows should know their shit, and Microsoft should know what they're protecting against. Like, and it's free. Fucking do it. Why pay for something when you can get built in what it does? And I will say, as someone who has run FireEye's Commando platform, which is an offensive security platform, good fucking luck doing that without knowing how to completely disable Windows Defender, because it is a bitch to get everything downloaded, because Defender, as soon as it reboots your computer, completely restarts, and it's like, hey, all of your shit's fucked. We're going to say no. Like,
so that's where the threat actor comes in. Have you seen the ransomware attacks where they disable and just uninstall Windows Defender?
Is that possible? Because I really want to do that. I really want to get rid of Defender that is baked into Windows these days. I really want to get rid of it. It's a pain in my ass.
Just go on and ask Black Busta. Black Busta does it. They're known to do it. Ryuk back in the day used to just disable it completely. A few other variants. Well, I mean, every variant disables Windows Defender. The other EDR that comes to mind right now, which is when people tell me they have it, it gives me the shivers, and that is Sophos Intercept X. Now, I don't know how many people have that in place here, and I'm sorry if you do. I would recommend going to take a look out there and look at other products. Out of all the other EDRs, Carbon Black Defense and Sophos Intercept X are the biggest ones that come in with ransomware attacks because they're the easiest to disable.
Yep. CrowdStrike's a bitch. I will stand by that. I have
I love it.
To disable it. It is such a bitch to disable.
So in one of my cases, we had CrowdStrike deployed, and the threat actor knew that it was deployed, and that accessing the console of the CrowdStrike implementation did not have MFA.
Ooh.
So what did they do? They stole their password of the admin, logged into CrowdStrike, and uninstalled it everywhere.
Wow,
that should not even be why is that even an option on EDR?
I never even thought about that.
Is that cool?
That is something. Look, as a pen tester who has had to go against CrowdStrike, I have not thought about that concept. That is fucking amazing.
This is why you need defensive.
I'm using it in the future.
That's why you need defense. So when I look at the pen testers out there, and I look at pen test as a service, let's say the automation pen test, I speak very highly of Node Zero, Horizon 3 AI. The former CTO of Splunk built out this company with the assistant head of JSOC of the U.S. Army. His name is Tony Pelletier. Them two built out a product that will do anything. If you want, I would love to see you test this out and see if you would do any different nuances than the product itself there, because it is incredible. One time we tested it against an environment with SentinelOne, and instead of just conventionally testing the environment through this automated pen test, it opened up a backdoor to Russia or to Ukraine, wherever it went, and it started pulling in botnet traffic. And so the botnet traffic triggered off and started like confusing SentinelOne to the point where SentinelOne started missing specific alerts. Isn't that cruel? So
But that leads me down another path. And so going back to how you do your forensics and your incident response, I have always said there is a distract and act method. I'm going to distract you with all this shit. What I really want is this over here. I have stood by the fact, with the exception of maybe one or two APTs that are just truly after money, 9 times out of 10, they're after the data. So they will distract you with all this shit while they're pulling data and doing everything they need. And then, you know what? They're like, you know what? Just for shits and giggles, let's lock up your computer and see if we can get some extra money from you. That's literally all it is just,
that's where you put the banking Trojan.
Pay me.
Yeah, well, so one of my favorite cases was a case with Sentinel-1 fully deployed in the environment. Every system was rebooted. And you know how Tomer and George have put out guarantees that if you can deploy ransomware on an environment that has Sentinel-1 deployed everywhere, systems rebooted, everything fully secure, they give you $1 million. Well, in this environment, the IT team's like, we're going to make $1 million because we were hit with this ransomware and we have Sentinel-1 fully deployed. I get in there, Sentinel-1's alerting only. No blocking.
You son of a bitch.
So they wiped all the systems. Everything's wiped. Everything's back to, they've fully re-imaged all the systems. All the servers are re-imaged. I go into the Sentinel-1 console. I go back a year. I see the whole timeline of the threat actor. But it was alerting. So we see crypto miners, hundreds, if not thousands, of different crypto miners for Ethereum, for XMR, Monero, for Bitcoin. And it was literally just mining everything. Every single type of coin was being mined. Every single crypto coin was being mined in this environment. This small little company, wherever it was from, it doesn't matter. And then you see a remote desktop tool, one of these remote desktop Trojans, the rat Trojans being downloaded, deployed, and then the ransomware dropping. And then you also see everything in the alerting side, rclone being alerted on, RDP, something like that, some other tools being just dropped. You know that data was exfiltrated, but we didn't see it in the logs because everything was wiped. So we're going back and we're like, Sentinel-1, $1 million? I haven't seen that. Sorry. So I can call Tomer right now on my phone and be like, Tomer, or I can call others in Sentinel-1 and be like, hey, I have it. We got it. But in the end, nobody.
Because they're not deploying it right. And it comes down to
I didn't call anyone. I was like, I almost called the head of sales and I was like, we got one for you. And then I realized I can't call them because this environment wasn't deployed. It wasn't deployed correctly. So you brought up before, properly deployed, properly alerting, properly detecting and blocking.
And that's a challenge. That's a challenge across the environment. People, buy these shiny lights and don't deploy them right, and then they get hit. And they say, "But as a CISO, you sit there and you say, I just bought you tool 1 and tool 2 and tool 3, and if it's not good, no training, no deployment, no thing." So people will put it in there and read the manual and try to do them themselves. And there's a big challenge. I mean, you reminded me of a case that I had where a major government entity called me. I mean, it was like you said, on a Friday, get over there and get in there. And they said, we had 17 IDS consoles deployed. And this is back then when IDS was the big thing. And this is 20 some years ago. And I walked in.
He's been around since tablets, the original stone ones. So you got to cut them.
Oh.
Yeah. So okay. I went into this data center. They said, we've got 17 IDSs. Where are they? And I see a row of boxes, literally brown boxes with these IDS consoles on top of it, connected to a power strip with no Ethernet connected. So they didn't lie. There were 17 IDSs active in the data center. They were just not connected to the network.
I just want to bring up a point here. Brad brings up, everyone wants to focus on detecting and response while GRC is over here asking, how do you control? And I look at that and I say, this is how I counter it. In the 75% of businesses that cannot afford a governance, regulatory, or compliance team, they're not looking at that. What they're looking at is, how do we detect and respond and block the attack? If we're looking at banks, if we're looking at big financials, we're looking at big healthcare, that's a little bit different. Because from that side, they should have these huge GRC teams, huge IAM teams, huge EDR, MDR teams monitoring, or SOC ops monitoring everything from top to bottom and making sure that everything is in place so that if there was an incident, we see it. And if there wasn't an incident, we see the incident. Get it? That was a Sans line because there's always an attack. You just need to find it.
Well, there's only two types of companies: those that have been breached and those that don't know it yet.
It's true.
I stand by that. And so we got one here from Brian, our friend. Not to step on the conversation, but I am aggressively seeking anything that won't get me more than community service for a first time. I had to put that up there. I had to do it.
So true.
So I look at it though, and I think about this. And so you brought up EDR, and I think it does pose a very, very valid point, especially when you're looking at forensics. I can't believe so long to get the first old man comment in here. Yes, I know, Rebecca. It took me a while. I had to wait. All right. I had to be given the opportunity. Don't blame me. So I look at these. Now there's XDR. Now there's all these different things that are coming out. So where do you put, say, something like Palo's XDR into the EDR realm, and how do you need them both? Can you go with one or the other? Like, how does something that work when you're looking at it from a forensic standpoint? What is going to give you that information that you need to respond? And then we're going to get into the business email compromise, because that's a fun one.
Yeah, I want to define that for people. There are a few people that needed to look at Google at what BEC stood for. When it comes to, how do I want to answer this? Yeah, at this point in just looking at how threat actors are dealing with stuff, you have to do with what you can afford. Okay?
Right.
You can't do more. Palo Tools, and I'm going to get flack for this from some of my friends there. I already know it. He's going to call me after this because I sent it to him. Alex, I know you're listening. I love Palo Alto. I'm one of their biggest fans. Demisto, which is Cortex V or Cortex, whatever it is now, I knew Raj beforehand. I brought them into Blue Voyant back in the day. I was one of the people that accepted the program to bring them in. I believe if you're a small business and you cannot afford the big programs, then you can't afford the big programs. If you need to go with the Sonic walls out there, if you need to go with the FortiGates out there, then go with it. But at least have the basics. The basics are an EDR, MFA, and patch management. Because if you have patch management, the vulnerabilities that they had in the FortiGate firewalls would have been patched in place in time for people trying to exploit that. If you had a Sonic wall in place and you had a great patch management, policy in place, you patch it before the Sonic wall gets attacked or gets targeted. You have an EDR that's actually monitored and actually detecting and blocking incidents. Yeah, It works. I see Brad's writing again. XDR, EDR equals alarm. It's not true. I would love Brad to come and see what I do from my side, and you'll see that it's not just the alert, it's the actual detection response and blocking of the attack from actually starting. In the amount of cases that even Kaseya a year ago, almost to the day, the Kaseya incident was one of the biggest attacks because it came through the RMM, a remote management solution. How are you
What
going to
was
stop
bigger,
that?
that or SolarWinds?
So from what I saw more Kaseya incidents than I saw SolarWinds, and I saw 100 times more Exchange on-prem incidents than I saw anything else.
Oh, that's because people refuse to get away from Exchange on-prem.
And every single one of my calls on the after call, like after we sent them a report saying that they were not infected yet or they weren't hit yet and that they patched on time, I also wrote in that report saying, please make sure to remember that Exchange on-prem is end of life 2025.
Alex, you're in trouble. So Rebecca says, for all those that listen on podcasts, Rebecca comes in again. Alex is going to need a
I need
big
another
bowl of
beer.
apologies after calling everyone and their dog out during this stream. And yes. So I love the fact though that we're calling this out though, because of the fact that there's a lot that goes into these patches. There's a lot that goes into your solutions. There's a lot that goes into all of this. And someone brought it up earlier in the chat. And for anybody watching later, you probably would have seen it in the live replay. For anybody listening, you didn't see anything. But at the end of the day, I look at this and it comes down to, and I put so much blame for security incidents on senior management, whether it's a CISO, whether it's a security director, or anything like that. And the reason I do that is because they get sold FUD. They see the shiny, blinky lights in the boxes and immediately are like, oh, we need this in our environment, but then don't have the team to support it. Why are you going to buy a product first without a team or without any intent of hiring a team to support it? That is my issue. Have the team, or at least have the job descriptions out there to bring them in to support what you're buying. And Eric, who is higher up on the food chain, isn't going to like that. But please chime in.
I'm going to unmute myself because I was muted over here because I didn't want to curse at you.
Oh, please do.
And Rebecca has seen my face turn color as you guys were talking. So, yes, a lot of CISOs and CIOs and C-level or directors or whatever you want to call it. That's a new one. That's what's Sun. Okay. If they are non-technical CISOs or CISOs that have come in from different organizations, will fall for that. Will fall for the FUD. It will fall for those things. Other CISOs that are more technical, understand the business, understand the challenges, will bring in technologists to evaluate. As a CISO, you are not the chief architect. That's not your job description. Your job description is to run a program. Okay. You are knowledgeable in the field of cyber, or you grew up in the field of cyber, but your job is to run a program. Okay. It's that knowledge of saying, I know enough not to know how to defend my system. So let me bring the smart people. Let me bring those VTM. Let me bring those network security people. Let me bring those SOC people and tell you, they're trying to sell me this. Is this something you need? Is this something you want? And is this something that's going to enhance your posture? That's the sign of a mature CISO, not them saying, oh, company X came in and showed me the blinky lights. they said that with one box, one single pane of glass, AI, ML, blockchain. Wow.
Hold up, you said AI and ML. You're gonna like make AR like just.
Yeah,
He's gonna lose his mind over there.
So long story.
I'm walking out. Bye.
Yep. What Alex said is true, and what you said is true. Is it's not just the FUD. It's knowing what you need, when you need it, and how it applies to your network. Okay.
For sure.
I agree with that. And it goes back to you can't have all the shinies in one environment. And those who can afford it, you're still going to get hit with something because there's always something that's missing that you're going to miss. And it's unfortunate, but we've seen everywhere organizations between let's say 5 endpoints all the way up to 15,000. We've seen school districts with 2,500 endpoints, and we've seen school districts going up to 15,000 endpoints. So everyone and anywhere is going to be there, and unfortunately, everyone's going to get hit.
And if we have any CISOs out there looking, single pane of glass, when you have 7 single panes of glass, you now have 7 systems. It's not a single pane of glass.
Oh, so I have a lot of panes of glass over here.
So, Alex, I got a question. Have you done any incident response or digital forensics? Actually, I wanted to get to that, but we got 9 minutes left. Well, we're probably going to go over the hour, depending on when you stop me, because this is probably going to be on you to stop me. So depending on when we stop, but before we get into that, I got to ask, business email compromise. I have seen that coming through more and more. I have seen people taking over, or at least posing as CEOs, CISOs, security directors, CIOs, all this other stuff. Has business email compromise been a bigger deal as of late than previous? And what is your take on business email compromise?
So let's define business email compromise first. The definition, and I'm going to go back in the chat to what is a business email compromise, and it essentially is everywhere from phishing to mal spam to extortion, going through email, where someone is attempting to compromise your email through spoofing, through actual phishing, or any other way, and getting access into your either your email or attempting to take over your email account by saying that you're someone else and moving forward with it. In that instance, the 3 or 4 biggest things that I've seen is spoofing being one, where you're not really in their account. I'm not really sending an email from Derek's email account, but it looks like I'm sending from Derek's email account because it looks very similar to it. Or like if you want to call it like DNS twist, where instead of me sending it from @CyberWarrior, I'm sending it from @CyberWarrior with an @ instead of an A, and that account now gets an email sent over to Eric, and now Eric's like, oh, it must be Derek, and he clicks on the link or he submits his credentials to some O365 site, or he says, let me change my ACH wire transfer funds to transfer money over to Derek's account to send him some money because I like him so much. In the end, maybe not. What we're seeing is a huge uptick in these incidents over the last maybe 90 to 180. Especially with a small business where your accounts receivable is like a 35-year-old lady, or a 55-year-old financier guy who is doing all of your work. For some reason, the finance person is sending all the money or wiring money, but unfortunately it's happening. And 98% of the time we're seeing that happening in O365 or Exchange, and in that 2% we're seeing, and this is not just Arete, we're going back 10 years now of incidents with business email compromise. You're seeing everywhere from 95 to 98% going through O365 or Exchange. There's a very small percentage where you're building out your own email tenant, and it's like postfix or prefetch, and people are attacking those as well.
I'll give you a perfect example. This is an actual case. When I was a CISO of a smaller organization, and I got called up because the EA to the president of the company received an email from the president saying, "Hey, I need you to wire me $1,500." And when I looked at, sorry, it was $15,000,
Oh,
and
it's not that much.
she tried to wire the money, but unfortunately, or fortunately for us, the bank blocked it because it was above the level that she could use. And that's when I got the warning that this email was there. And when I looked at the email, it was pristine. I had to go into the headers to find out that it was a business email compromise.
Wow.
It was that good.
Wow. So I've only seen in my career of seeing if not millions, maybe more than millions of phishing emails. Working for for the financial industry, you see hundreds of thousands, if not millions.
Mhm.
Um, there's only been one or two that I can think of that look that perfect.
It was perfect.
And I was like, wow, I really needed to like go into the header and see the switch. Um,
So
and
let me ask you a
one,
question to that with that though. With that business email compromise, or where you're saying you're going into the header, because I've looked at some of these and I've seen a few. What is it you're seeing? Because a lot of times what I've seen is I have seen some where they actually compromise the account themselves. So they're logging in and sending it direct from their exchange or their O365 or whatever. So what in that concept, what in that compromise is triggering? And I'm asking this for everybody else so they know what in that is triggering that, hey, you're fucked. Somebody has your account basically.
so that brings up a really good point, and that is, if someone accesses your account, the first thing they're doing is creating rules because they don't want you to know that they are in that account. And the first rule they're usually creating, and a bunch of my forensic folks who are here right now, like Brad or Connor, might be here, and they know that if we have an O365 incident or email compromise incident where someone actually accessed the account, the first thing they're doing is creating a rule. The rule is either to push all the emails coming in with that like secret sauce of what they're about to send an email off to, send it to the RSS feed. Send it to they're going to create rules. The second thing they're going to do is they're going to send out a mass amount of emails, thousands, all to your address book. So in my O365 for my work, I have no email accounts in there.
Yeah.
The only emails you can send it to at that point is you're going to send it to whatever is in my mailbox. But there's nothing in my mailbox either. I delete everything or I store it on my local machine.
Asshole, you're better than me. I fucking keep everything. I'm like, I'm too lazy. I might need this eventually. I'll I can deal with it later.
I've learned the hard way, unfortunately, where
But
one of those
I
pristine
have
emails were sent to me.
I've seen quite a few. I've seen some really shitty ones. But what I have seen is, hey, I'm your boss, your founder, right? One of your co-founders.
Right.
Please email me or please text me your phone number or email me your phone number or this, that, and the third. And half time and they're really basic emails. It isn't like, and it's not poor grammar, it's not poor English, it's just really short. And then what they're basically asking for is my cell phone number. And I'm just like, you see, he already has it. Everybody in the company already has my number. So I'm not going to email it to you.
I don't know.
So I'm just saying.
I don't have your.
But-
I mean, I do have your phone number. Never mind.
Right. I mean, we only have each other. So actually, I asked Eric for a
You gonna
segue,
see
but
it?
I'm just going to. We're at the top of the hour, so I do want to get this answer for Brad. How does focusing on endpoints and internal networks help prevent BEC and M365? Seems like access controls may help there. This is the last question we're going to do before we cut off and do our final thoughts. So please let us know.
So how does focusing on endpoints and internal networks help prevent BEC and M365? And it seems like access controls would help, but unfortunately, we're talking about big organizations here who have the ability to understand who has what access, where they have access, what they have access to. In this instance, I would say with the small business, and I'm going to go back to what I stated before with security awareness. It's just understanding who you're talking to and who's going to answer that. And going back to Derek's situation where someone's asking you to, hey, I need 14 gift cards sent to me right now. It just sounds weird. Like for everyone, even with my wife, who I'm married now 10 years, and in the 10 years she has clicked on too many links to admit on a live stream. And in one of the links she clicked on, and I tell this story a lot. And one of the links she clicked on was to a JetBlue free tickets. You get free tickets if you given X amount of credentials and you pay X amount of money. Give us $5 and we'll give you free 2 tickets to Barbados. And she's like, I'll give $5. Yay! And then my credit card hit like $15,000 limit. This is like my first year of marriage because whoever had that credit card information just used it.
After 10
And
years,
they went,
you don't have 15,000 on your credit card, so that might have been early.
I'm at 12 years. I know damn well I ain't got shit on my credit card.
Yeah, well.
God, if you're
my
still
limit
on
is like
my
22.
social,
The
you're
bank-
helping me.
That bank called me so fast. They're like, you spent $17,000 to go to Turks and Caicos. I was like, no, I didn't. But someone else did, and they're going on a really nice trip. So, yeah, with regards to that, it really depends on who you're dealing with. You bring up a really good point. It really has to do with access controls. You need to be putting in separations of duties. You need to be putting in the right regulations, the right compliance. Unfortunately, when it comes to these incidents that I deal with, it's not the company that has a team dedicated to GRC. It's not a team dedicated to IAM. Yeah, in most of the cases, I have an on-site team, or in certain times I had an on-site team that would come on board, and we would say they only had 700 endpoints, and they said, no, you don't. They have 15,000 endpoints.
Yeah. Hey, Alex, I've got a task for you. Okay. Can you go over to
Sure.
the CVS and get some Visa cards for me, scratch the back, and then send me the numbers,
You don't need
please?
to go to CBS. All you need to do is go on the dark web, and there are certain sites that will give them to you for free.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Oh man, but no. So all right, Alex. Before we sign off, please give us your final thoughts on DFIR, digital forensics and incident response, and business email compromise.
So my biggest take.
Oh, there's
gonna give-
Dancing Granny. We got her. We got her. We got Dancing Granny.
I think I'm
Go
gonna
ahead.
give security recommendations here instead of giving you like my overtake, my overview of everything. I think the biggest things here are if you have the bigger environments going into the GRC, bringing in those EDRs, bringing in the patch management, and everything else down the line. If you have the money to do it, if you don't have the money to do it, sticking with the deployment of EDR, MFA, and all the other acronyms you can think of after that.
All right. So, Eric, as we have Dancing Granny on the screen, please
Can you hear
give us
the
your
music?
final thoughts
Can you hear the music?
and what you're getting into in the next week.
On me?
Yeah,
Work.
you, homie. You. Give me your final thoughts.
So
God damn
we've
it.
got some exciting stuff happening for Rise of Cyber. So next week, the U.S. Cyber team and the U.S. Cyber Games has a activity. The launch of the second season. They just came back from Greece, where the U.S. team took the bronze. So on the 30th, go to U.S. Cyber Games. I believe it's uscybergames.com and register. We're going to have a wonderful day of kickoff. Jen Easterly is going to be doing the keynote speech for us. I'm going to be moderating a panel with members from NIST and Cybersecurity and a bunch of other stuff. So please come check that event. It's going to be between 11 and 5. So Raíces Cyber is sponsoring one of the panels there. So it's going to be a wonderful event. And we are getting ready as well for the U.S. Cyber Games charity event in Las Vegas at the Luxor. So that's going to be an amazing event during DEF CON and Black Hat time. So a lot of big things happening for Raíces. Please follow us on raicescyber.org and just to make sure you follow and go see these activities. It's going to be wonderful. All right, back to you, Cyber Warrior.
Definitely. All right. So look, hey, it is me. It is the Cyber Warrior. This has been CyberWarriorStudios presents Security Happy Hour, and it's been another amazing episode. I love you all. Thank you all for being here. And next week we have, actually, funny enough, he is the one that caused the most controversy with Alex today in the chat. We have Brad Proctor joining us, and we are going to discuss a lot of amazing things. Yes, we have Brad.
Oh,
Brad is coming back. So we are going to have Brad Proctor on next week's episode. So please tune in. And otherwise, I love you all, and you're all amazing people. Take care. Have fun. Enjoy your weekend. And if you're listening to us on podcasts, you're really missing out. You really, really are. You need to tune in live on YouTube. Take care, and I'll see you all.
True stuff.